So for those of you who have not been on one of these calls before, my name is Jeff Skipper, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the fourth masterclass in the series on the topic of leading change and some of the insights that are generated around what we're experiencing right now with the pandemic. So we'll run for about 30 minutes. My content will not take that long. We'll have time at the end for your questions. And I do want to give a shout out to the fact that it is Friday. Hallelujah. So I'm feeling much more relaxed knowing a break is coming. It's been a long week. I'm keeping everyone on mute and I've locked that down. Please use the chat to ask me questions as we go along. And a reminder again, this will be recorded for replay later. So let's begin. So give me a yes in the chat box if this resonates with you. It's funny to me, but also reasonable. If I was going into a biohazard situation, I think I might want my bunny slippers as well. Sometimes you need a comfortable, something that's comforting, a pet to cuddle, a warm blankie. For a mental break, I've been turning to the comics page more lately just to give myself that mental switch for a moment. I've added a couple feeds with cartoons to my Instagram at end of day just to balance things out. We're getting a lot of updates from Dr. Dina Hinshaw. So for those of you who don't know who that is, she's the Chief Medical Officer in Alberta, Canada. She gives us daily updates by video of what's happening, what's the latest count, and what we're doing about it. This came a couple days ago. We are all grieving in some way regarding loved ones, loss of jobs, income or health, loss of control, which is very significant. We're going to talk about that. And the close physical connection we have to others. We are mourning the normalcy we once knew. It is a natural reaction to experience different expressions of this grief. Interesting, in the area of change management, many of us will say, the old model of the stages of grieving don't really apply to change. And that's true generally, but in this particular instance we're dealing with, it has a large degree of application. So I like the fact that twice in here, she normalizes that for the audience. And same thing we need to do in our organizations. Not everyone steps up to change right away. So normalizing that is important. I know that the experience of grief is highly personal and also that it changes over time. Another great insight of the fact that the emotions do shift. Sometimes they get worse, sometimes they get better, ebbs and flows. She adds the next day, our hair may be getting shaggy and our tempers may be getting short. Those of us with young children may be running out of ideas how to entertain them at home. The heart of the matter, we can't yet make plans for when life will return to more normalcy. I'm guessing that all Albertans want their lives back and as soon as possible. Now, I love what Dr. Hinshaw is doing. She said so many fantastic, encouraging statements, but that last line I was concerned about, because the reality is, even when lockdown is lifted, what does it mean to get your lives back? I'm not sure we're going back to everything being exactly the way it was before. Certainly not for a long time. So that, for me, that's not necessarily the right goal we need to have in mind, getting our lives back. It's going to be some form of adaptation. So there's two issues I see when it comes to mental health and change. The first one is, and I've used this chart before, over time as we're enduring these lockdown measures, they get harder and harder to endure. And this level of resistance begins to rise. That relates to how we experience stress. So some stress is good, it helps us perform, but over time stress is mounting and we have this level at the top of that curve over which it begins to break. Once we're pushed past that point, we see lots of negative outcomes begin. So fatigue, yes, but then look, panic, anxiety, anger. We know that's out there in spades right now. So as I was considering this and the fact we all have these different levels, different tolerance points, and I'm like, what is it about that curve that seems familiar? So I came back to this resistance curve that I'd drawn and realized this was freehand, and yet the overlay works almost perfectly. So I had gone to my wife and said, hey, I'm trying to describe the fact that, we have this resistance building over time. I said, yeah, it's tolerance. We all have this level of tolerance. And at some point it breaks through the cap we have on certain behaviors. So what are we going to see? Well, some start having mental health issues. So it's that panic, anxiety. Some will defy, I'm not going to obey anymore, or outbursts of anger, or they receive burnout and breakdown as well. This is the relationship, the connection between long-term enduring change and what we're experiencing in terms of resistance. So number one issue, loss of power, loss of control produces stress, and lots of it. That's an issue. The more we have it for a longer period of time, we begin to see these negative outcomes in terms of mental health. There's another issue though. We talk about work versus home. We use the phrase, I'm trying to maintain some balance between work life and home life. And what we're seeing now with work from home is these areas are collapsing, and now it all feels like homework. And who's a fan of homework? That's a very small part of our population. To some of us, we have the advantage of we've got a home office. I have a very nice home office, and I can leave it, close the door, and go do something else in my home. Not everyone has that capability. And even if you do have the office, it may be invaded these days, whether it's pets that we welcome or it's kids coming in because they need support. But I've noticed when I'm running calls with my clients, I'm seeing people who are dialing in from their kitchen, from their bedroom, from a hallway. Work is invading what we consider our homes. That is another critical aspect of mental health, because we need some degree of separation. We need to be able to escape these environments. So this, again, a level of humor which overlays a reality. We see people doing these things. I'm upstairs right now. On weekends and holidays, I go downstairs because upstairs is work. So boundaries that enabled us to recharge are breaking down. Consider the fact that when we go for a vacation, commonly we're leaving, we're going somewhere else. When we want to refill the battery, it's taking off to another place, another context. If we're stuck in the same place we work, it's difficult to recharge because we're just not getting out. This begins to break down our tolerance. We just have less of it available. So small things tend to ignite us, and we end up feeling like this sometimes. I'm just not in the mood. Leave me alone. Or on the other end of the spectrum, I need to go somewhere else to interact with people because that's my recharge. Consider the fact that, sorry, too fast. Consider the fact that we hear people make statements like, I need a break from you. I'm so mad I can't even look at you. You're invading my space. All those things make it evident that we sometimes need to get out, go somewhere else. So we recognize out of these two issues, we do need rest and recovery. We need separation. These are important elements of restoring and maintaining our mental health. Proactively, we often consider that when we're facing a challenge, we want to be in the best physical shape we can. When you take the pandemic, there are many who have said, keep up your routines, because if you get the stupid thing, you want to be in the best shape possible so your body can fight it. What I haven't heard as much is saying proactively, how can we build our mental fitness so that as we face longer days of isolation, as we're struggling with being distant from family, how can we prepare ourselves so we're in much better shape? Proactively, not trying to fix it after the fact that we're starting to feel some of these elements of isolation, loneliness, and perhaps depression. So what to do? I'm often with clients talking about our personal capacity for change. When we're looking to make major moves within an organization, we look at the group level, but it's individuals who make change happen. We have this battery within us. Covey called it the emotional bank account. And every day, hopefully it starts full. It may not, but hopefully it starts full. And then as we go through the day, we're spending out of that bank account. At some point, it hits zero. And when it hits zero, we're less able to cope with change, let alone any conflicts that come our way. How do you build it? So physical energy, keeping up that fitness routine, going for walks, getting enough sleep, increasing your endurance, that's all going to help on the mental side of the game as well. Our motivations, what we're looking forward to, what we're inspired by, having goals in front of us. I've posted a couple things suggesting that when people come out of isolation and lockdown, they will regret they didn't do more with the time. I know that's going to happen, but having some motivation instead of saying, all right, I'm going to take the opportunity and learn a new language, learn an instrument. I'll just tell us an anecdote. Ukulele sales are going through the roof right now. So if you're interested in an instrument, you may have a tough time finding a ukulele. Developing skills and experience. The more that we've done, the more that we've encountered, leaves us more able to weather storms that come our way. The support we have, an obvious one, checking in with family and friends. And finally, faith plays an important role. We all have certain beliefs, and thinking about that elevates our sight to something greater. We can say, this shall pass. We know that there's something beyond pandemic. So, question for you. What do you do to refill the tank? I'm curious as to what this group might contribute. We got 32 of you online right now. So give me an indication. What are some of the things you do to recharge the batteries on a day-to-day basis these days? I'm sure some will have heard before, but you never know. I often get some unique things. So Trevor's got meditation. What else we have? Painting, yes. So I should not do any painting, that's for sure, but I can see that would be helpful. Walk to a different bridge every day. I love that. Thanks, Pat. Piano playing. We got photography, friend connections, goal setting together. I like that. Walking, sewing masks, good, helping others. A new show to stream and unplug from work. Nice. Playing guitar, reading, nature walks, gratitude. Aerial yoga. Mel, you're hilarious. I don't know if you really do that, but I had someone post a video showing that's exactly what they did to alleviate stress. It's cool stuff. Talking about the day with friends, go for a drive, barn, gym, stretch, write, reflect, walk the dogs. Oh, good. Hey, Kendall, good to see you online. Say hello to the Whippet for me. So all good measures to use. And here's some of which you've mentioned, some you've not. So laughter is always at the top of my list. I have a strong sense of humor, and that I often find get a recharge out of that. Treating yourself. So I don't know how many of you have gone shopping these days online. I've done quite a bit just out of boredom at times. So like, all right, I'm going to get something, bring it in to distract myself for a while. And at the bottom there, music, meditation, breathing. From a work context, here's some things you might not have considered. Mandated breaks. Shorten your meeting. So rather than run a 30-minute meeting, a 60-minute meeting, why not a 22-minute, an 18-minute, a 47-minute meeting, and then say, you've got some time. I want you to get up from your laptop, your desktop, go do something else, look out the window, walk down the hall, come back, check in with your kids, whatever it is. Allow specific time for people to vent. That's the check-in, but it's with sincerity to say, how are you doing? Is there anything that's really bugging you? You've got me for the next 10 minutes or whatever. Feel free, anything you want to talk about. The other side of that might be if a manager's not feeling equipped, I want to remind you, we've got an EAP program, and you are more than welcome to use it if you want some more support. Acceleration periods is the flip side. What if we said, from 9 to 11 every day, that's pure work, because I know working from home, you can be even more productive, and then we're going to take an hour off. Now, you can do that any way you want, but there's another way to look at that. Someone already mentioned gratitude. Well done. That can be done at the start or end of every single meeting, and it changes our attitude coming in. It causes us to reflect differently. Rest, shutdown periods and procedures. That sounds way too formal. What I mean is saying, let's have an agreement, 5 o'clock and a day every day, everyone shuts down, because I know you need time to recharge the batteries, and I want you to shut the laptop if you're working out of your kitchen or the living room and put it away. And in your mind, reclassify that space. This is now home once again. When you get up in the morning, maybe that's the office, but we're going to change the perspective on that. The procedural aspect is I ensure at the end of the day I reflect on what I've accomplished. I do not dwell on what I didn't get done because there's always going to be some of that. But what did I get done? What was positive about the day? And then during the day, balancing the dreary tasks we have with something that's a little more tapped into my passion that uplifts me along the way. So the premise I'm using is that our capacity for change in general is bolstered, is built upon our mental health. So we're coming to accept that language more commonly in our society around talking about the importance of mental health. Let's connect those two things. I'm going to give you some examples to show why that is true. So when I went looking for resources that might be interesting, the Wellness Society was one that was recommended to me. And inside are a whole bunch of interesting tools. You can see a tool to help you better meet your social needs. So if you're feeling isolated, here's how you can combat that. So it references, for example, this app, Sanvelo. Stress, anxiety, depression can get in the way of you living your life. This app gives you psychologist-designed tools to address them based on cognitive behavioral therapy. Now, if you get my wife started on CBT, you'll be talking a while because she knows that works very well in therapy. So this is some good stuff. The Calm web chat, for those in the UK, but seriously, are they going to know where you came from? So there's a resource. The Peanut app, for mothers. We make it easy to connect and learn from like-minded women. So these are just 3 examples out of a ton that are in that particular resource. And I will send out a link to that. Diane, I want to acknowledge your comments. Sometimes a nap can really help. I'm a big fan of naps in the afternoon. I can do power naps in 15 minutes and they're hugely helpful. So good call on that. Look what they include. Here's a conversation menu. Now, this is not aimed at corporate space, but why not? Could you start your meeting with, what's been the highlight of your week so far? What are you looking forward to in the future? Main course. Do you have any goals you're working towards right now? Have you had any interesting insights? And then dessert. What's the most interesting thing you've read or learned? I commonly have feedback from groups I'm working with when I run warm-up exercises that help people learn about each other personally, the things they're interested in, hobbies they have. They often find that to be a huge benefit because the more I know about you, the more I trust you. The easier it is to communicate. So this is a great example that comes out of the area of mental health, but is perfectly applicable to how we run our meetings and how we support people through change. Here's more. So they also have the Coronavirus Anxiety Workbook. This should definitely be on your list of things to download. And again, I will send out the link for that. But look at this. The first thing to note right now is that it's completely normal to experiencing a wide range of emotions. Accepting your feelings is an important first step to building resilience. Is that not a statement we could use when we're working with organizations to help them navigate change? Absolutely. Look at the last part of that. Circle the emotions that you identify with. Anxiety, stress, worry, fear, low, lonely. I know right now people would be experiencing those things personally. I know they're experiencing them when they're faced with daunting change. Could I have them do that exercise on their own and then say, if you wish, if you've circled one or more items and you'd like to talk about it, here's your EAP, or you can book a session with me. I'd be happy to speak with you. And this exercise, again, it's intended personally, but it applies to our organization. Identify what is within your control and what's outside your control. I spent time talking about the reason why we get resistance is people feel like they don't have any control. It's been taken away from them. So helping to identify what you can do something about gives people a sense of, all right, I'm not completely helpless in this organization, in this situation, and it alleviates the stress. New York Times, again, following their tech reporter, this was an interview. What can all of us do to keep this pleasant, what we're experiencing right now? Kevin responds, I've been thinking about this a lot. I think the answer is we need to contribute more. In normal times, we and I include myself, are much more passive about the internet. There's some research that shows we're happier when we use social media actively rather than passively. I'm one of those folks who is a lurker. I just read stuff. But I've started participating more in some of my hobby groups. And he's right. It does feel good to be contributing. Does the world really need photos of my boring oatmeal? The answer is yes, be boring. Living through a pandemic is terrifying. We should all be legally required to post photos of our boring breakfast. Why? Because it normalizes what we're all sensing and feeling anyways. So that's a critical insight for us. So social media, not all bad. If you're not a Facebooker, I think that can offer something positive there. The news is making people anxious. You'll never believe what they're reading instead. So one of those, what do they call those, clickbait kind of headlines. But interesting in here, Instagram accounts dedicated to good news, such as Tank's Good News Movement, have seen follower counts skyrocket in recent weeks. At the end of March, the actor John Krasinski introduced a news network for good news, blah, 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 surpassed 1.5 million subscribers, 25 million views, and Google searches are up as well. So people are tapping in. Interesting. We're getting sick and tired of all the negativity on there. We need some balance. I like how one writer described it as you need to go on an information diet. That doesn't mean no information. It means a balanced diet. So yes, you're going to read the news, understand what's going on, but also get some good stuff. Hold on to that. So Made in Alberta, the Text for Hope initiative, sends subscribers a short encouragement or tip to promote better mental health. I signed up for this last night, and I'm just pulling up my phone here because wouldn't you know it, this morning's tip was, when bad things happen that we can't control, we often focus on the things we can't change. Focus on what you can control. Now, it doesn't stop there. They give a link which takes you right to some helpful tips around how you might do that. I love this very simple way of getting something positive coming into your text inbox. So 40,000 subscribers so far. Doesn't matter if you're in Alberta or not, you can take advantage of that. So simple sign up. All right, some concluding thoughts. Do designate a non-work zone within your time frame of the day, whether it's, again, cutting off at 5 o'clock or interspersing them throughout the day. Ensure employees do take breaks. You almost want to enforce that. I've been in projects where we just told people, you need to go home now. It's the equivalent when we're working from home. Balance your information diet, as I mentioned, with good and bad. Recharge the battery, ensuring you're taking time for that. Laugh a little. So you've done some of that today, I'm sure, on this call. Help someone else. Someone mentioned this too, around sewing masks. When we do things for someone else, we get as much benefit out of it as they do. And finally, don't stop these disciplines beyond the lockdown. So just because we're able to go back to work, we're able to hug one another, whatever, I would encourage you to embrace many of these things just to keep that mental health up. And so we become more resilient as we're facing difficult situations and change transformation in the future. Now, if none of that was particularly helpful for you, then I have one more tip, and that is you could spend 6 hours watching sheep relaxing in the Schaefer vineyards. They wander around, they eat grass, and they lie down and say bah quite a bit. And this is in high definition. Now, you think I'm joking. Look at the views in the bottom left. It is very relaxing. I put this on for a while, and it's just in the background. You have sheep noises. And if you look in the middle of the screen, you can see there's a baby lamb there. So something to distract you, I think you might find valuable. Brene Brown, I think, articulates this really well. I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from a relationship. These are things that we can give to one another from a distance by checking in, by finding ways to help each other build up our mental health. Makes a big difference in the workplace. So I have time for some questions. So feel free to use the chat area to do that. And I don't have any at the moment, so I have a few I've pulled from what you submitted. How can we help people open up about what their challenges are working at home? When they don't share what they are struggling with, it's hard to support their needs. I know there to be people who don't want to admit they're feeling ineffective right now. There's a lot of discussion about psychological safety, of creating these spaces within our work organizations where people feel like they can share. That is the key. I did some work on this previous to this session. There's some good stuff out there about this. I'm going to flip over to my browser just for a minute so I can share that with you. Bear with me. Here we go. I'll blow that up. So this is on the Mental Health Commission.ca, 13 factors addressing mental health. So interesting. Work culture, psych and social support, clear leadership and expectations, civility and respect, on and on. These are all things that apply really well to how I'm going to approach my changes as well. If I'm trying to figure out how to get people to adapt to a change, I'm going to consider organizational culture, how I'm providing support, leadership and expectations, and on down there. Where I have any of these missing, I create a barrier to people engaging and adapting. So I thought this was quite useful. So there are some good resources around for how you create psychological safety in the workplaces, and I'll make that available as well. Going back to my presentation, here we go. Question from Stephanie. How do you tackle the power struggle when HR doesn't want others to provide the company with support and resources? I'm in change, not in HR. So I've seen that split in many places. Honestly, this is one where I would do it and ask for forgiveness later, and actually I'd be partial in not asking for forgiveness at all. This is about doing the right thing. If you're concerned about backlash, then start with a small group. So build some momentum with a group that you think might be receptive, and they will spread it for you. There's no problem with saying, hey, I'm going to distribute these to a small group to start, but if you pass it on and people want to join, let me know. We'll include them. But honestly, that sounds like HR is just being a barrier, and I have no patience for that kind of stuff. This is about doing what is right. There can be a sense of guilt associated with just feeling completely and genuinely fine. Thoughts on that? Wow, great question, Yvonne. Thank you. First of all, I think that's rare, even for me, who has a lot. I mean, there's a lot going for me right now. I'm busy. I've got good work. We're all safe at home. I still have moments. But if you're feeling guilty about it, I would just, again, aim at doing things for other people. There's so many things that can be done virtually, online. I'm even finding going in and commenting on other people's posts just to say, I get it, feel for you, empathy for what you're feeling like. That's one way to connect with others and do something to acknowledge that not everyone is feeling fine. I hope that helps, Yvonne. Thanks. Gab, my husband, extremely extroverted. I am the only energy source. How do I manage that better? Honestly, you're going to have to double up on what it takes to recharge your batteries. And you may have to set some boundaries there too. Sorry, I've dealt with clients that they just won't stop talking. I don't know if that's the case for you, but I finally have to say, you know what? I need a moment. And then I take the moment and I don't come back for a while. So that's one way to do it. But yeah, it'd be doubling up and setting some boundaries for sure. Biswajit, I think we see the change is not forever. It gives me power to face it. Yeah, so again, if you can look beyond, if you can elevate your gaze to beyond what we're facing right now, that helps greatly with our ability to endure. I'll pull another one off the page here. Recent disruptions have significantly increased stress levels. Staff and leaders are anxious, unsettled, alarmed, insecure, feeling unsafe, distrustful. What actions, recommendations should I incorporate in my change program to help support the organization through this crisis? Well-articulated question, Leanne. So much of what I shared with you today, I think it is creating ways for people to connect with one another and understand that they are humans. So that lack of trust, being distrustful, alarmed, unsettled, when we see that others are struggling, when others are experiencing some positives too, that does give us hope. It recognizes that we are feeling some of the same things as well, and you can share in that together. So all those check-in elements that we looked at before, I think, help crack that open. You won't completely eliminate it because there is a lot of insecurity out there, But this is long-term. And again, beyond lockdown, we're going to have to keep doing these things on a long-term basis. Diane, some neighbors and I have coffee in the morning or happy hour in the afternoon in the middle of the cul-de-sac. Bring your own chair, stay at least 6 feet apart. Oh, I love this. My son went out actually last night, and his friends, each of them in their car, were talking, I guess, windows rolled down kind of thing. So these are great ways to connect with people and get a break. Thank you. Last question I've got up here. How should change fatigue be managed in the present chaotic situation? 2 things. 1, acknowledge that that is real. So I have organizations commonly these days saying, Jeff, should we delay? And my answer is no. Keep going, but acknowledge the fact that there is tiredness and do more to respond to it. Make them aware of the resources, provide ways to connect, check in personally, and give people a break. So don't delay the program, but maybe you delay a couple days. All right, you know what? You need to check out for a few hours or a day. You know, to be honest, folks, yesterday I was feeling I really need a mental health day. Went into my calendar, blocked out Monday. So Monday I'm taking off. I'm going to need the weekend and Monday to recharge fully and then get back on it. So acknowledge the fact that people do need to recharge and provide space for them. So normalizing, that's a normal reaction to get fatigued. And second, providing and helping them to take actions that are required to recharge. All right, don't see any other questions coming in. So just a reminder, I've got one more scheduled, April 22nd, driving change from a distance. Yes, you can. So we'll look at some specific tactics for doing that. We've talked about some already, but I'll have more. And then I'm pretty much set on, I'll offer this bonus section on remote leadership and resilience. Do a massive Q&A because there were so many great questions that came in. I just couldn't hit them all. So again, thanks everyone for coming. Some great questions coming in. And lots of people I see posting thank yous now. I've had lots of feedback. Really appreciate it, folks. That gives me a charge too and keeps me going, even though it's night before when I might be creating some of these decks. But happy to do it. I think it's good service to the community and happy to help. So folks, we will sign off there and we'll look forward to talking to you again next week. Bye for now.